you got to have the intention of how you want the other person to feel. You will be misunderstood, for sure. And you will be unrelatable to many depending on what you're doing in the world. But there's always opportunities to relate. You just have to be willing to go there depending on what it is and if it's aligned.
It piles up and it piles up and it piles up. That is actually a proof that we're growing. The fact that we're having trouble sustaining and we feel spread thin is actually proof that we're growing, because when you grow, you get more opportunities. And when you get more opportunities, you have more to-dos.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, Next Level You weekly live podcast. Week number 110, the top 10 signs you are growing. I know that, Alan, when I started this journey, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't really know what to look out for. I felt like I was growing at a good rate, but I didn't really know what signs do I look at. Is there a speed limit? Is there a yield sign? What do I look at? What are the mile markers to determine where I am? We figured that if you're a dream chaser, you are going to have your own unique version of growth, and it's going to be at different speeds. But Alan and I want to add value in terms of saying, hey, this is what we've seen. This is what clients have seen. These are the top 10 signs that you are growing towards your goals.
So, Kev, when I was a freshman in high school, I think we were 14 or something like that, I hit puberty late, so I was very, very short. I think I was probably like 5'2" or 5'3" as a freshman in high school.
Take it easy.
Sorry. And by my junior year, I was 6'2". And the reason I'm saying that is I grew a lot in a very short amount of time. And when I went to the doctors, I had what I thought were shin splints because I used to do track and cross country and all that. And the doctor said it's just growing pains. You grew very quick and it's growing pains. And so the rate at which you grow is going to create growing pains. And a lot of these top 10 signs that you're growing, quite frankly, are challenging. They are painful. And the reason why we're doing this podcast right now, this live podcast, is we want you to know that some of these things are actually a good sign, not a bad sign. Even though they seem to be red lights, they're actually green lights. Keep going. Or maybe they're yellow lights, but they're definitely not a red light. And a lot of us, we are growing at an exponential rate and we stop ourselves or we quit because we think we're doing something wrong, when in reality, some of the pain and discomfort is actually proof that we are growing and that we are transforming. And Kev, you had on your slide at Next Level Live the caterpillar with the butterfly, and the caterpillar had a bubble above its head and says, "You've changed." And the butterfly said, "Yeah, we're supposed to." And if you know the analogy here, a caterpillar in a cocoon, actually it's very painful to become a butterfly. Apparently, I don't know how much, I haven't researched the science of butterflies, but my point is that that's very much, I don't think, and I'll say this, when Emilia and I first got together 2.5 years ago, I remember asking her this simple question. I said, "Can you grow without challenge?" And she said, no, immediately, flat no. And I said, "Can you have challenge without pain?" And she said, "No, of course not." And I remember thinking to myself, yes, I'm with a partner who understands that. The no pain, no gain thing, I understand that some people have taken that too far. I understand that. But there's some truth to it. And hopefully by the end of this live podcast, you'll understand, you know what? Maybe I'm winning more than I thought. It just doesn't feel like it in the short term.
Alan, you and I went to, was it California? When did we meet? You met me here at my place. Taryn was kind enough to drop us off at the bus station. We took a bus to the airport. Was that Arizona? It wasn't Florida. I think it must have been
I
Colorado.
think it was Florida.
No, Colorado. Colorado.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was Colorado. Yeah. So Alan and I met here at my place. Taryn dropped us off at this bus station, and this bus takes you from where I live, it's probably 5 minutes from me, to Logan International Airport. And I remember getting on the bus, and there was 6 people. It was me, Alan, and maybe 4 or 5 other people going to the airport. And I was like, this is really nice. It's a really nice bus. There's TVs. The seats are super, super comfortable. And I remember telling Alan, I said, you know what's super strange? It was only $20 or something for both of us to ride this bus. How do buses like this make money? And Alan and I had a conversation about that, and we went back and forth. And I ended up thinking of something in a different way. So my first point, everything you look at differently. Because when you're growing, you have new awarenesses, and it makes you rethink everything that you thought was normal, or it reformats the way that you look at things. I had never thought about in my life how a bus company made money. I never thought about it. It didn't matter to me, but certain things in my life had aligned for me to need to know how that worked. Taryn and I went to, it was a fair, but it was very much a carnival. And even at this carnival, I remember we went up to the game where you throw darts at the board, and if you break the balloon, you get a stuffed animal. And I remember the person saying, no matter what, you win a stuffed animal. And I remember thinking, I was sitting there thinking, like, how does that work? Oh, you know what? This is probably a 98-cent stuffed animal, and I just spent $5 to throw 5 darts. They're making $4 a whack. Like, that's how that works. And then the last point, the last example of this, I used to be so afraid of airports. I remember the first time I went into an airport, it was like this city within a city, and I could not navigate it. I didn't know how to go through security. I didn't know where the gates were. I didn't have any understanding of how that worked. Now, Alan and I have done airports enough where it's quite simple, and I feel very, very confident, very capable, the least anxious I ever have, because everything I look at differently. Because my awareness is higher. I've grown. And when you practice something, you change your normal. So if you are doing things you've done before and you're having different thoughts, or you're a layer deeper in the understanding and the awareness, or something that used to take you into your anxiety zone now is either learning or comfort, that is you growing. Those are all telltale signs that you have grown. And one of the things I want to preface, and then I'll probably stay with this throughout the entire talk today, is human beings, from my perspective, are not super good at finding progress. And that's why we want to tell you about these things, because it's like if you have this moment where you go into a restaurant and you're thinking, wow, how does this restaurant make money? Or you're going to the movies and you're like, oh, that's why that is set up the way it is. That's a sign of growth. That means you have learned more, your awareness is raised, and everything is a little bit different. So that is the first point, the first of top 10 that you're growing.
And if you want to talk about growing pains, here's the challenging part. When you have a new awareness, all of a sudden you have to reprocess all of your past through that new understanding. So if you didn't understand that one of your biggest weaknesses was the fact that you believe you are shy, and then you find out, oh, I have the identity that I'm shy, so I don't do audacious things, and that's why I didn't apply to that school, and that's why I didn't raise my hand in class, and that's why you have to reprocess all of that, and that can be really traumatic. It can be really painful because you didn't know any better. You didn't understand any better, and now you have to reprocess not only everything from now on, like Kevin's mentioning, but also everything from the past as well. One of the reasons why relationship talks coaching is so challenging for Emilia and I is that we have to raise the awareness of these couples of what's been causing them pain for years. And when we raise their awareness to their patterns and their cycles of like, okay, well, she's puffer fishing and he's actually shelling up and they're triggering each other and their past trauma, it gets really messy. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, crap. That's why we've been having challenges for 6, 7, 8 years now. But now we can take those lessons into the future. And now you can, to Kevin's point, now you can identify when it's happening. Now you know that you're in control from now on. And so one of the things that I think is fascinating is we have this weird relationship with learning because when we learn, it's painful. When you realize how much math and not understanding math has caused you to not make as much money, it's going to be painful to realize how much money you've left on the table. But now the future will be brighter, even though the present is painful. And there, that goes back to the no pain, no gain thing. So the top 10 signs you're growing: heart-driven, but no BS, holistic self-improvement for dream chasers. If you're a dream chaser, you need to grow. And if you're going to grow, you're going to be in some challenge and some discomfort and some pain. Growing pains are there for a reason. So to Kevin's first point, it's important to understand that you're going to have to look at everything differently and that can be painful. My point, number 2 here, you feel just a little bit afraid, fear, that you might have bit off just a little bit more than you can comfortably chew. Kevin and I have felt this way for the last 5 years. And the story that I'll tell for this, if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, unlike Kev, there's a scene at the very beginning of the first movie where Bilbo Baggins is talking about how he feels old. I know I don't look old, but I feel old. I feel like butter spread across too much bread. And that's kind of how it feels when you're growing. You feel spread thin. You feel like you're struggling. It's like when you're at the gym and you could just do the 40s, but you're going to try the 65s to see how you do. And as soon as you pull them up, it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get 5. And it's kind of a struggle. That's how you feel, but in your life. Kevin and I started with 1 episode a week, and then 2 episodes a week, and then 3. I think we jumped to 5, and then we jumped to 7. It was really difficult to get to that next level. And now here we are. I'm doing 8 episodes a week if you include the Conscious Couples podcast. He just started Podcast Growth University, so he's doing 8 episodes a week as well because he couldn't handle the thought of me doing more episodes than him. I'm just joking.
It's part of it.
But between the two of us, we're doing 16 recordings a week, 8 each. Obviously, 7 of them are this show. But my point is we didn't start there. And I'm going to be honest and vulnerable here. To this moment, for the last 5 years, when Kevin and I first got together with the Hyperconscious podcast, Meets Conversations Change Lives, to this moment, on the day-to-day, I've felt pretty overwhelmed. I've not gone into one weekend where I didn't have a little bit of like, how am I going to get the entire to-do list done? Saturdays, Jenna and Amy are both my executive assistants, executive admin. And every Saturday, we have an executive admin jam session. And it's like a 3-hour block where we crank out our to-do list, most important tasks. Jenna has wedding stuff that she was doing this past weekend. And Amy and I were there, and it was like, how are we going to get all these done? The to-do list is a mile long. It's too long. And she suggested that we just start slicing stuff because, quite frankly, we have to. It piles up, and it piles up, and it piles up. That is actually a proof that we're growing. The fact that we're having trouble sustaining and we feel spread thin is actually proof that we're growing, because when you grow, you get more opportunities. And when you get more opportunities, you have more to-dos. I told Kevin this early on. I said, the demands on our team will always be greater than the number of people on the team. There will never again be another time where we don't need more help. And again, that's because we're a growing business. If our business wasn't growing and we weren't getting more clients and we weren't getting more listens and we weren't scaling, of course we wouldn't have more demands on our time. See, it's awesome to have 30 clients, but it's also ridiculously challenging to sustain 30 clients and not let the quality of your work decline. So that's number 2. You feel just a little bit afraid. You're a little bit fearful that you might have bit off more than you can chew. And most people consider that a red light rather than a green light. Be careful. The key word there is fear. But if you have a little bit of fear each day that you won't be able to get it all done, that's actually a necessary prerequisite to growing and scaling anything in your life, especially in business.
We did an episode on something like that recently. I think it was maximizing your potential can't be easy, because by definition, if what you're doing is very easy, you could do a pretty large percentage more, just to Alan's point. And I think that's an important example for this. I remember it was an interesting time where I had a very close friend and there was somebody I was dating, and both of those people ended up leaving my life pretty quickly between each other in terms of time. So I had a really good friend of mine, and when he was going to meet the person that I was dating, I remember I texted her and I said, just a heads up, this friend of mine he's kind of an ass. He's a little bit of an ass. And she said, yeah, no worries, no big deal. You know, I'm totally cool with it. I'm sure we'll be just fine. And I remember thinking, it's very strange, and it's probably not the best thing in the world that I have to introduce my friend that way, that I have to give that little disclosure of just, hey, just a heads up, friendly reminder, this person will most likely rub you the wrong way. And after more growth and after more leaning into self-improvement and after reflecting on the past, one day I realized that this person probably is not going to fit into my future. Not that I didn't love this person, not that I didn't care about this person, but one of the big signs and painful signs that you're growing is you start to take a real look at your relationships. And oftentimes you find out that there's been things flying under the radar that maybe you didn't have the awareness or the confidence or the competence or the courage to look at in the first time in your life. And I had to move on from that friendship. And that was very, very difficult. It was very, very challenging. But I had the courage to do it because I believed it was the right thing. And because I had grown and I noticed somebody else's lack of growth. And I realized the way this is trajecting, it's not going to work. It's not going to work long term. If you fast forward, 3, 4, 5 months after that, I ended up having a very difficult conversation with the person I was dating. And I remember she said, "Hey, why are you doing all this? I don't understand." I said, "Well, a lot of things happened in my past, in my childhood, and same with Alan, and we're really trying to have this positive impact on the world and bring personal development to the masses. And I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to do all these amazing things. Like this is what I'm going for." And she just didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. And that was another sign. That was you know what? Maybe this isn't going to work out long term. And I had to leave that relationship. And I had to go be single for a while and go through that pain. When you start to take a real look at your relationships, things are going to come up. You're going to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm starting to connect the dots of why these things are the way they are. Oh, I have to refer to my friend that way. Oh, I have to filter myself around these people." When you grow, you start to lean into who you are becoming. And oftentimes that will separate you or create some sort of leverage between you and the people that you hung out with. What it does is it reestablishes the relationship. And you can see it from a new perspective. So in my opinion, and Alan, I'm sure you have a bunch of points like this, but this is one of the more challenging aspects of it because you don't necessarily expect that when you start your journey to growth, and you assume everybody's going to grow with you. And unfortunately, that's just not always the case. And it's challenging. We've done so many episodes on growing pains, and honestly, this could be it, right? This could be the top 10 growing pains you'll experience on your journey, but that has been the biggest one. I know it's something I've dealt with. I know it's something Alan has dealt with. I won't say you cannot. From my experience, in my opinion, you cannot allow that to be the thing that stops you from your growth. Because 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you might regret it. What if you were growing towards something amazing and the people in your life just didn't want that? Will you regret not chasing your dreams, not getting to where you want to go based on the opinions or the feelings of other people? Probably. You probably will regret that.
This is a perfect segue into my next point, which is your closest friends and family are starting to question why you're doing what you're doing. So the top 10 signs you're growing, this is one of the signs. Your closest friends and family, and often your intimate partner, are starting to question why you're doing what you're doing. Because you're taking the unbeaten path. You're doing something very differently. I have a client who is an unreasonably optimistic dream chaser, and she's super hardworking, like unbelievable. I am the biggest fan of this client. And I would bet a lot of money, I would bet all my money on her succeeding in the long term. And one of her relationships, one of the people closest in her life, and I'll keep this anonymous, called her delusional. And this person, knows famous people, has tons of validation from people who really do have high awareness in her industry. She's beyond extraordinary, and quite frankly, this other person is the one who's delusional. She had to leave that relationship because to this point, your closest friends and family are starting to question why you're doing what you're doing because they don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. When I went from 160 pounds, quit drinking, to a 220-pound person, I gained 60 pounds in a little over 6 months. And people were very deeply questioning why I was doing what I was doing. What they didn't know is that I wanted to be a fitness competitor, fitness coach, and fitness model. And 2 years later, when I'm achieving all of those goals, fitness coach, 41 photo shoots, 3 different shows, won one of my shows, they didn't know that I had to gain all that weight in order to build muscle underneath the fat and then shred the fat in order to win those shows. The point is I was optimizing for something that they were unaware of. And I use the Chinese bamboo as an analogy all the time. Imagine walking outside every morning at 5 a.m., watering a patch of dirt while your friends and family watch. And they have no idea that it's anything more than a patch of dirt. And it takes 5 years every single day to water it, water it, water it. And then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, it's 200 feet tall. That's a lot like overnight success. That's a lot like what winning that fitness show was probably like for people. It's like, why is he doing this? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. He's getting fatter and fatter and fatter, quite frankly. And that's literally the exact words of some of my friends. He's getting so fat. Okay, this was a really painful time for me, but it was actually proof that I was changing, that I was growing. People were saying, why would you have to get so big? You don't have to get so big. No, you don't have to get so big for your goals. Okay, I won my fitness show, and that 2-year transformation was drastic, and I understand why they didn't understand. But my point is, what if being criticized a little bit by closed-minded people is actually an indicator that you're winning? What if it's actually an indicator that you're doing the right thing? Everyone think of the most closed-minded, arrogant, ignorant person they can think of. If that closed-minded, ignorant, arrogant person is mean to you when you're chasing your dreams, I promise you, you're doing something right. And I guarantee you, if you told Kevin and I your goals and dreams, I promise you, we would be like pouring into it. We'd be saying, you can do it, you got this, absolutely. You got to make sure you work hard. You got to make sure you have self-discipline. You got to make sure you have the right people in your corner. You got to make sure you stop listening to that person. But at the end of the day, whether it's my client or whether it's me or it's Kevin, when you have big goals and dreams, you will be questioned by your close friends and family who don't get it, and it's understandable why they don't get it because they're not optimizing for the same thing. Before cars, there were only horses. Before airplanes, there was only cars. And before spaceships, there was only planes. You have to understand that the people, and I'll say this quickly too, the term lunatic came from back, I think it was early 1900s, when someone said we could go to the moon one day. That person was called a lunatic. Well, obviously that lunatic was right. And so if you feel like your own unique flavor of lunatic when you are chasing these goals and dreams, what if you're right? What if they're ignorant? What if they don't understand? What if their awareness is low? What if they're just trying to protect you because they're afraid you're going to fail? When failure is a necessary process to win. So top 10 signs you're growing. Your closest friends and family are starting to question why you're doing what you're doing. That might be an indicator you're on the right path, not the wrong one.
What is up, you guys? My name is Gabby, and I just want to give a huge shout out to Kevin and Alan for the community that they have created and the mission that they are on over at Next Level University. Never in a million years did I think when I started listening to the Hyperconscious podcast 2 years ago that I would be as invested as I am today. But here we are 2 years later. I have done group coaching. I truly look forward to every single episode they drop, all of the things that they're teaching. And I am now doing one-on-one coaching with Alan to help level up in my business. And all I gotta say about these guys across the board is they are true, genuine souls. They mean it when they say they are heart-driven, and they mean it when they say they are no BS. And I think that's probably my favorite part about them. They get rid of the fluff. They give you tactical tips and tricks to help you level up in your life, to help you make strides towards your goals. And they've created a community of like-minded people to lean on each other at every single stage of life. So guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the impact that you have made in my life, and I am so very excited to see the impact and the waves that you make from here on out.
And you might feel the need to explain yourself more. I think that's definitely a part of that. Maybe not. Maybe you just do your thing, but I think a lot of people tend to feel the pressure to explain themselves more. So maybe you'll find yourself having different conversations or more uncomfortable conversations depending on who you are surrounding yourself with. Alan mentioned one of the slides I had at Next Level Live was a caterpillar and a butterfly. And one of the other slides I had was the NLU, well, I guess hyperconscious / NLU growth from when we were in Alan's sister's old bedroom to the basement to the studio to going virtual. So much has changed in what seems like a short amount of time. We're very, very grateful because we have the opportunity to see that through pictures. I know not everybody else does, but if you and I right now, Alan, were podcasting from your mom's basement, we probably wouldn't feel very good about it. and I probably wouldn't just come out and say it. I probably wouldn't be very proud of it. I'd probably be embarrassed, and I wouldn't want everybody to know that. When you grow, you start to feel comfortable talking about certain scars. Now, I don't mean physical scars. I mean things that you have dealt with in the past that at one point it was very challenging, it was very difficult, you were afraid, you were ashamed, you were embarrassed to talk about, but now you've grown to the point where those are just pieces in your story. Those are just landmarks in the journey to you getting to where you are today. I know that Alan and I talk a lot about being broke. And it was very, very challenging at the time. It was challenging not to be able to buy Christmas presents for Taryn. I actually told her dad that the other day when we were grilling outside. I said, yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I'm very grateful she was so supportive because not everybody would be. And I tell the story now of how my car would break down when I would stop at red lights. I'd be pulling up to a red light and my car would just turn off. And then everything would go. The power steering would go. The brakes would go. It was brutal. It was truly, truly terrible. And at the point that it's happening, you don't want to talk about that. You don't want to jump on the podcast and be like, hey, Alan, how you doing, man? Yeah, no, my car broke down today on the way to the studio and I almost crashed into a tree because my brakes didn't work and my steering didn't work. It's very painful to talk about that at the time. But as you grow, as you evolve, I think that you grow your courage. You grow your ability to talk about things that once seemed impossible to talk about. And those things become major, major parts in your story. And that's what people connect with. That's what people connect with. They connect more with your struggles than your victories. So when you feel comfortable talking about your scars, when you feel safe, when you feel like that thing that was an open wound for so long is now a scar, that is a major, major, major sign of growth. And if you look at all the episodes we've done with guests, many of the most impactful ones were the guests who were sharing their scars because they've grown enough where they were confident, capable, and competent of doing that. And many of them have actually went on and gone on to make that their message. And now that is part of who they are as a human being. So if you feel courageous, if you feel like, you know what, I'm ready to talk about this part of my journey or that part of my journey, that is a great sign that you're growing because you're not maybe worried as much about judgment, the way other people are going to look at it. You're not worried about becoming that person again, whatever it may be. You're distanced enough where you can actually talk about it. And one of the main reasons the distance is there is because you're growing as a human being.
This next one I want to actually ask you about it, Kev. Number 6, you just did 0.5, right?
That was my third point, whatever that means.
Okay, that's 5. So we're kind of pitching back and forth here. So number 6 is you start to resonate and relate just a little bit less with anything common or popular. And Kev, I know that you've grown more in the last 5 years than pretty much anyone I've ever seen. In terms of where you started versus where you are now, in terms of mindset, in terms of capabilities, in terms of skills, in terms of learning, in terms of awareness, in terms of work ethic. I mean, you know, I just think it's been drastic. I think you've grown a lot in a very short amount of time. Genuinely.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So this relatability thing, can you talk a little bit openly and vulnerably and honestly with our listeners about how challenging it has been to stay relatable to common things or popular things? And I do think that you're good at this.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. But I think it's a challenge, and it's a sign that you're growing, because I know that you and I have had this conversation behind the scenes many, many, many times of like, I don't really feel that relatable anymore, and I don't want to lose that. How do I not lose that? And that kind of thing. Because the way you operate now, I mean, not everyone tracks 21 habits a day, right? No, pretty much no one tracks 21 habits a day. So you are unrelatable in many ways. So how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because it happens pretty, I don't want to say quickly overall, but you'll tell pretty quickly when you're spending time with somebody and they ask you a question of like, hey, did you watch blank? Or did you hear about blank? And it's like, I don't even know. I have not the slightest idea what you're talking about. I have no clue what's going on. I don't even know what that means. I've never heard of that before. I think for many people, and Alan and I have had these conversations behind the scenes just with the goal of being better leaders, better podcasters, better speakers, more positively influential. It's very hard to connect with somebody if you haven't been where they are. So I think my goal, I always try to go to where somebody else is. You know, it's like we had the cable guy came out the other day. He came out this weekend, Saturday. And when he came, it was like my goal was to make him laugh and make the the experience as enjoyable as possible for him.
Was
And
it Jim Carrey?
No, it wasn't Jim Carrey. If it was, I would
I'm
have snapped a photo. But
Yeah.
I think that the key, I mean, think about it. Relatability means the ability to relate on a common theme, right? A common thread. Alan and I can relate on fitness because we've both done it. We can relate on podcasting, on speaking, on coaching, on dealing with the pains of growth. I think that you just have to figure out what is the common thing that you can kind of vibe on. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard because, and I've always said this, Alan, I want to be the most extraordinary regular dude in the world. That I don't want anybody to know I'm extraordinary, quote unquote. And I want to do all my stuff in silence. And I don't really care if anybody knows that. That's always been kind of par for the course for me. So I don't really know that I have a great answer to that. I think the best answer is you got to have the intention of how you want the other person to feel. You will be misunderstood for sure. And you will be unrelatable to many depending on what you're doing in the world. But there's always opportunities to relate. You just have to be willing to go there depending on what it is and if it's aligned.
Have you started to resonate or relate less with certain things?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things. Anything that brings drama. That's like, I'm against, like, I don't want to know about the news or whatever's happening on certain like show. Like, I don't want anything to do with any of that. That's just not my jam. So I definitely don't relate when it comes to that, but I just try to own it and say like, that's just, I don't know what's going on there. I'm kind of a hermit. I live under a rock. That's kind of just what I say. I doubt it helps.
Appreciate it, brother. Well, just to end my point here, the top 10 signs you're growing, you might feel a little bit, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel different because you've never been this person before. You're growing, you're evolving, you're transforming, your awareness is transforming. You're going to feel very different. You'll feel more relatable to certain people. If you're a podcaster, you can relate to Kevin and I immediately more. But you can't relate as much to people who have never podcasted. And that's just par for the course. So just understand that everyone in your life, through the law of attraction, is in your life based on common core aspirations, core values, and core beliefs up to that moment. When I had the car accident at 26 and Kevin had the suicidal ideation at 26 and we transformed our entire paradigm and went all in on holistic self-improvement, everyone else who is not all in on holistic self-improvement is just a little bit less relatable. And that's okay. That actually is proof that we are unique. And you're all unique too. And you just have to understand that if you're trying to please everyone, it's a losing game. I remember I downloaded a book on Audible once on, I think it was something like Influence and Persuasion, the 25 ways to be as likable as possible. And I literally deleted the book like right after the first chapter because I was like, no, I can't change who I am to try to make sure everyone likes me, but I do want to be the best version of me. And I never want to not be me. And I think that hopefully that resonates with everybody here. The more you lean into who you truly are, your unique gifts and talents, what you really think, feel, and believe, the more unrelatable you'll be at times. Because for some reason it's set up this way. It takes the most courage to just be authentically you, even if other people don't like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we became more serious about podcasting, we started having podcasters in our lives. And it's one of those things of like, yeah, you understand me. You understand what I'm going through because you're a podcaster. You know what it's like to do interviews, bad interviews, get guests, whatever it may be. So that's the other thing too, is you'll start to attract different people that you resonate more with into your lives as well. So and there always is that chasm of growth, and that's something we can go into too. But one of the biggest things that we have done that has required the most growth, and it was so much uncertainty and so much fear, and many of you might not know this because you might be new. I think we were 475 episodes in when we rebranded from the Hyperconscious Podcast to Next Level University, which we are today. When we did that, I remember, Alan, you might not, but I remember going to bed one night and I was genuinely having like a midlife crisis of like, what does all this mean? Is everything going to be okay? Is this going to be the end? Are people going to still listen to us? What is going to happen? And that has happened probably monthly. Alan and I had a conversation last week where I said, "Hey man, I need to redesign my life. I think I'm burning to the ground, and I don't think I'm getting enough done, but I also think I'm getting a lot of things done. Can you take a look at my system, my PPT, and let me know, what do you think? I think I need to make some sort of shift." One major part of growth, and this will happen more and more as you grow more and more, you have many, many, many midlife crises. And again, we've done, I don't know how many episodes on growing pains, but everything you think you know, you start to question. If, we have a bad speech or I have a bad podcast episode, I start to question myself like, wait, am I even a good speaker? Am I a good podcaster? What does this all mean? When Alan and I made a bunch of money one month, it's like, okay, what does this all mean? Like, did we make it? Is everything good? Can we kind of take it easy now? No. And then when we have a tough month, it's like, wait, are we going to make it? Are we in trouble? Is everything jeffed? I think that this is one of the funnest parts, because Alan and I have gotten to do it together for 5 years. So, I've never been alone in these growing pains or these identity crises, but you will experience this at a fairly common rate. One of my buddies is a real estate investor and an entrepreneur, and we have these conversations all the time of like, I don't know, man, I feel like everything is burning down and I don't know if any of this makes any sense. And it's like 6 months later, he's crushing it. And that's just kind of par for the course. So very much to one of Alan's points, it's going to be a lot of stretching, and there's going to be a lot of resistance. And sometimes it's going to feel like you bit off more than you can chew, but ride with it, because in a couple days, in a week, things start to level out. And then what you're looking at, it starts to change, right? What you're looking at looks different. And I think that that's another part that makes it difficult. It's very hard to talk about that with somebody who hasn't grown at the rate you have. When you start to contemplate things that you thought were a certain way and they're not, that jeffs your paradigm. Everything looks a little bit different, and you're thinking to yourself, is everything that I was looking at before completely wrong? Was I looking at it the wrong way? I've had so many of those. Alan has had so many of those. So understand that is par for the course. But it's a wonderful sign that you're growing, even though it might seem like it's time to hit the brakes. That is not what it means. It means you are having new awarenesses. It means you're starting to question things that you once believed were true, and that is the process of growth. That is the process of progress. That is the process of you getting to the life you want. It just requires that consistently over a long enough period of time.
Kev, it's interesting. It's like you went from I can't be a speaker to I'm a speaker on stage with Evan Carmichael. You went from I can't be a podcaster to a global top 100 show. You went from so broke you couldn't afford Christmas presents and your car didn't work at stoplights to 46 grand in a month within the same year, by the way. It's wild. It's wild how much that can mess with your understanding of reality. Whenever you get a new, deeper understanding, and I can give you an example of this, and you talked about the chasm of loneliness, and I'm going to get into that. It's the phoenix has to burn down. The old you, the old identity has to burn down before you can evolve into the new version. Next level you. It's next level you for a reason. It's the next level version of you. And become the best version of yourself means that the old version of you kind of has to burn down. Not all of it, but some of it, parts of it. And then from those ashes, you can evolve those parts of you. So they never fully die, but they evolve. And so even something as simple as what I talked about last week, which was if you go on Facebook 5 times a day for 5 minutes, it actually correlates to 10 full 16-hour days in a given year. So if you saw someone on their phone scrolling for 10 full 16-hour days, you would think they were insane. But yet we're doing that every year without knowing it mathematically. And it's actually 9.5 16-hour days. But even just that one little deeper understanding, it makes you question your entire reality. And it can be very painful. So growing pains are actually proof that you're winning. I say this all the time. You can either feel good. Sometimes you can either feel good or be good. It did not feel good to go see Brendan Burchard speak and realize that I am way behind him. He has been speaking for decades, okay? When I first saw him speak, I was like, holy crap, I have leagues to go. And then as soon as I got home, I dialed it up to 11, and I'm 1,000 coaching calls in now. We're 110 live podcasts in now. Now I bet you I'd feel a little better. You have to understand that sometimes you have to choose between feeling good in the moment and being good in the long run. Number 8, there is a chasm of loneliness. Not externally or in terms of being around other people, but on the inside as you transform. I was on the phone with a client recently. She is so lonely. Okay? I'll keep it anonymous, but she's been single for a long time. And her dream partner, her standards for her dream partner are very, very high. And she and I had a conversation behind the scenes. She's like, I know if I wanted to, I could go out and I could meet somebody easily, but I know that would be the same old life that I used to live. I want something greater. I want someone with bigger dreams than me. And I said, okay, par for the course is loneliness. When you have ridiculously high standards, it's going to require some loneliness. Growing is a lonely game, so we call it the chasm of loneliness. With Kevin and I, we'll use us as an example. In the beginning of podcasting, we were saying kind of goodbye to the old world, our old corporate jobs. And so the corporate versions of us had to burn down, and the entrepreneurial versions of us had to rise from those ashes. But yet we're not fully entrepreneurs because we're broke, but we're not fully in corporate either because we quit our jobs. So we're kind of in this lonely land middle ground of like, are we successful? Are we entrepreneurs? Not really, but kind of, but we're definitely not in corporate. It's like, well, we're growth oriented, but we're definitely not fixed mindset. It's like this weird, lonely chasm of like, thank goodness we had each other to get through that, man. But that's the real sign that you're growing is you feel lonely on the inside, just a little bit. Because when someone comes on the NLU team, they immediately stop fitting in with their friends and family prior to that, just a little bit. But they don't fully fit in with the team yet because they're brand new. They maybe haven't tracked their habits every day. Maybe they aren't used to the level of dedication, consistency, and standards that the team has set. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I don't belong back there anymore because every time I go back, I feel uncomfortable and like I don't fit in and that I don't really want to stay here. But then it's like when I'm in NLU, I don't really fully feel like I fit in either. So now I'm in this weird lonely land. That's what we call it, lonely land. You don't fit in the old world, the old level anymore, but you also fully aren't capable yet of being at that new level yet. And when you get a mentor who's 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you, you're supposed to feel a little uncomfortable. It's supposed to be a little bit difficult to have those conversations, and this is why my coaching is so exciting but also challenging, is I'm coaching business owners that are far behind us for the most part. Some of them are not. But some of them are far behind us, and it's like, listen, you have a long way to go, and I've got you, and Kevin and I have got you, but like you have got to put in the work like we did. And if you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to get to that next level. And I know you're lonely, but this is what it takes. And so, again, that's number 8. There is a chasm of loneliness that you must grow through to get to that next level. It's like being in a tunnel under a mountain, super dark in the middle, and there's light behind you, and you could go back, but you don't want to. And the light at the end of the tunnel is far, far, far away, and you got to climb through. I just realized, Kev, that we're 41 minutes in.
You still have another. I have one more. You have one more?
Yeah,
let me hammer mine real quick.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. Okay. One of the other things, and this isn't my point, but I'll connect it to my story. I have a long Terran hair on me. 1 second. One of the things that happens when you grow is people who do what you do look up to you. So Alan and I go on a lot of podcasts. I'm going on more now. Alan is focusing on the business and the back end. But I was on a podcast recently, and at the end, believe it or not all podcasters podcast because they want to help their audience. Some people want to network with people. At the end of the interview, this person said, hey, what can I do to make this the most valuable use of your time? Like, what can I help you with? And I quite literally, honestly said, nothing. Nope, don't need your help. We're crushing it. Everything's great. We got a CEO, CFO, COO. Everything's great. We don't need any help. We're good. If you ever have any potential clients, please throw them my way. That's it. I was on a show a week before that, and the person that wanted to interview me said, actually, you know what? Maybe I'll come on your show and we can break it into a 2-part episode. And I said, absolutely not. That's not how this works. That's not how this is going to work. If that is the case, I will not come on your show, but we're not going to have you on our show because that's just not the way it works. So the last point, you start to stand up for yourself in ways you always wish you did. I've had a lot of people ask me for things and ask me to come on the show when I'm on their show and try to network and affiliate marketing and all these garbage that I don't believe in. And now I actually just tell them like it is. I'm not interested. We're not interested. We don't need to collaborate. We're building a sustainable business on our own. I'm not here to network. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm here to add value. Hence why I don't ask you to help me with a business I'm not interested in. I now have the courage, and I've grown to the point where I can actually be truthful about the things that I once wanted and longed to be truthful towards. And that is a major, major sign of growth, as long as you can do it without ego. Obviously, I got a little ego here because I get fired up.
And because it was lightning round, so you had to go quick.
Facts.
Last point, the top 10 signs you're growing. 10, the best for last. No, I don't know if it's the best, but it's the last one. You're starting to care more about the long-term fulfillment of your life than the short-term pleasure. We all know this. Donuts are never going to fulfill you. They do taste good, though.
They fulfill my belly.
They fulfill my belly. You are starting to focus way more on long-term fulfillment over the short-term pleasures of the world. And quite frankly, that is uncommon. Long-term thinking is not super, super common, and there's a lot of stats that go along with that and research studies, and we're reading Carol Dweck's Mindset in book club, and we can go deep in that on Saturday if you want to join book club. But here's my point. One of the major signs that you're growing is that you're not really caring that much about the short term anymore. You're starting to really think long term. You're starting to really set yourself up. I remember I asked this person that I was close with at the time, I said, I know this is lightning round, I'll be quick. I said, are you on a winning team? It was a very vulnerable conversation for me. Like, are you on a winning team? Do you feel like you're building towards a brighter future? Are you and your team building? Like, do your friends and family and people you surround yourself with, do they have dreams? Are they chasing their dreams? And she said, honestly, no. Like, you're the only one who has dreams that I spend time with. And I remember saying, like, is that okay with you? And I said this to her at the time. I said, honestly, you're the only person in my life who isn't chasing her dreams. And I don't say that to be mean. I just want to help you if I can. Like, do you feel like that's a good thing? And so remember, when you start chasing your dreams, there's going to be a transition. There's going to be a transition from the old person's places, things, and ideas into the new, and it's a lonely place, and it takes courage, and it takes work, and it's very difficult, but it's super, super important. And yes, you're going to have to sacrifice short-term pleasure, and you're going to feel the pain of that long before the long-term fulfillment. And that's my last point.
Next Level Nation, as you can see below, we are doing the giveaway where if you leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice, screenshot it, send it to myself, Alan, email, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, we will enter you into a drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Shout out to Nick, who won last month. Reviews help us find more people like you and bring them into the community and add value, and that is the ultimate goal for us. So if you want to do that, please leave us a review, screenshot it. The link is in the show notes and the Facebook comment
90
below,
days,
and we will pick a winner at the
3
end of the
months, 10 individuals, all growth-minded, all ready to grow and handle the growing pains of growth, clarity, consistency, work ethic, accountability, group coaching. Group 7 opens July 12th. I think we already have a couple of the spots locked. We have a big list of people that wanted to get into Group 6 that are waiting for Group 7. So if you're on that list, book your spot immediately. This will sell out. Group 6 is on fire. There's actually 11 people in there because we promised someone they could get in and then we messed it up. But we will only be taking 10 ever. 51 individuals, about to be 62 individuals after Group 6 have graduated from this program. The program has gotten so good. One of the NLU team members literally said this, I feel like I got gypped a little bit because it's gotten so good so quickly. Now, I said, well, we started out and tried to figure it all out. It's gotten really, really polished. There's going to be a workbook for Group 7. Group 7 is going to be on fire. Now we have an app. We have an app that you track your habits on. It's fire. So if you want more clarity, consistency, community, accountability, Group 7, July 12th, go to the link in the landing page, which I'm pretty sure Amy just put in the comments.